Coming up, a beautiful edible shrub. I'm talking about blueberries next. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to the Garden to Table. Now, you know the fall is one of my favorite times of the year, but you may think it's an unlikely time to be talking about one of my favorite fruits, blueberries. But you know, it's really a fruit for all seasons. For instance, just take a look at this plant. It's just beginning to turn its autumn colors, which are spectacular. And of course, who doesn't love the flavor of fresh blueberries or blueberry muffins? But you know, there's so much to this plant, I just felt like we needed to dedicate the entire show to it. In fact, we're going to head off to Oregon and show you how to put blueberries to use in your next landscaping project. Plus tips on how to properly store your blueberry harvest, and a couple of my favorite recipes using this amazing fruit. Oh, and I almost forgot, I got put to work in a pie factory making blueberry pies. You definitely want to stick around to see that. So as you can see, we've got a lot in store for you in today's show. In fact, I've got a load of blueberries coming in, so why don't we get started and I'll go check on the delivery. I'm here at the Silver Grill in the Willamette Valley in Oregon, and as you can see, it is blueberry harvest season. They use them in everything. Some of the best food you've ever eaten in your life come right here. Now, what I'm going to do is let these guys get to work in the kitchen, and I'm going to head back out into the blueberry fields and see where these beauties come from. Come on.
Mom, there's a whole bunch of blue blueberries over here.
I'll pick them. I love blueberries.
Well, why do you like blueberries so much?
Well, they're sweet and they taste wonderful and they're great antioxidants. And I have a wonderful blueberry pound cake recipe that I use.
I put them in the freezer, and you don't have to peel them or pit them or shuck them. You just put them in a bag.
Perfect.
And got it all year long. I got blueberries for my breakfast or whatever.
Blueberry plant lives pretty much forever. They just get larger and larger and produce more fruit as the years go on.
Raymond, I cannot believe the sheer amount of blueberries on these plants. I mean, the limbs are even weighted down to the ground.
Yes.
Is this typical?
This is what we expect here. Every year the bushes almost collapse from the way of their berries.
Oh my word. And they're so delicious too.
Yes.
How many different varieties do you have here on your U-Pick farm?
We have 4 different varieties. We have 3 mid-season varieties and 1 early.
I see. And that progression of fruit allows you to have an extended picking season.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I see lots of happy customers out here picking today.
We usually have a lot of customers on the property.
Yeah, yeah. And what is the range of time that they're allowed to come out and pick?
4th of July,
4th of July
is
okay.
when the blueberries begin, and it goes all the way till the middle of September without any late season varieties. That extends you into October. I'll probably plant some of those soon.
Well, it's just amazing. Tell me a little bit about the age of these plants.
We first started planting blueberries in 1979. My dad started the project. There weren't many blueberries raised in the valley at that time, but he saw that there was an opportunity in that market.
So with these plants having been planted in the late 70s, early 80s, they're approximately 30 years old.
Yes.
Now Raymond, I see that most of your plants are roughly the same size in each row. Is there a rule of thumb to follow on pruning and height?
mostly just so that you can still reach the fruit. I've seen fields where the bushes were well overhead high. And then of course you can't reach anything to pick it.
You'd have to bring a ladder out.
Yes, you would. There are 13 acres of blueberries here. Blueberries are fertilized with what's known as a balanced mix, so it's an equal number for each of your major nutrients. In this case, we use a triple 14.
I see. And how often do you fertilize?
3 times a spring, right as the first leaves come out, then a little later, and then last time as the blueberries themselves are starting to develop.
And that's important, I'm sure, for the health of the plant, but also for a really generous yield.
They tend to grow themselves to death. If you don't prune them heavily, they produce gajillions of berries. And if you prune them heavy, then they produce an enormous bush.
They're going to be overly generous to the point it's not good for their own health.
That's right.
Well, I must say I'm intrigued. I haven't seen any birds. Tell me a little bit about how you keep the birds away.
Sure. It is a real challenge. Blueberries are delicious. The birds love them as much as we do. If you hear in the background, it sounds like there are birds singing. In fact, that's a recording of little birds being attacked and killed by predator birds.
Oh my word! You're sending the message.
Yes,
stay
we are.
Away. What a great environmentally friendly way to handle a pest and a problem.
Yes, of course, along with producing healthy fruit, which does take effort, we also want to make sure, of course, that it's healthy for our customers.
If you love blueberries like I do, you're probably thinking, how can I have blueberries on hand throughout the entire year, not just the harvest season? Well, for years now, I've done this very simple approach to preserving them. This is how you do it. Line a baking sheet with wax or parchment paper and just place the blueberries on it, spacing them just a little bit apart so they don't stick together, because see, you're going to freeze them. Then you're going to slide that sheet with the blueberries into the freezer and leave them there until they're frozen solid. It only takes about 30 minutes. Next, you'll want to mark a freezer bag and pour the berries into it. I like to put 2 cups of blueberries into a bag, and then I know exactly how many I have when I'm looking at recipes. They'll last in the freezer bag up to 6 months. So here's some berries that were thrown in the freezer the 7th of June. I just want to show you what you can do. Now notice I didn't wash them before I put them in the freezer. Now's the chance for you to do that. You just dump them out in a colander and run some water over them. This gives them a little bit of a thaw, and it also rinses them clean. You can just let them sit in the colander and drain, or if you want to, if you're in a hurry, you can put them out on a towel like this and just pat them dry. It's a really easy way to keep blueberries around throughout the year. Give it a try.
Today we're making a Silverton Hills Blueberry Crostata. It starts with a very simple dough. It's a classic cheese dough that consists of 1 pound of butter, 1 pound of cream cheese, and 20 ounces of all-purpose flour. Now to start with it, take your flour and just sprinkle a small amount onto your work surface. With that, you're going to take your butter and put it onto the flour. Put a little flour onto your knife and you're going to cut it into simple cubes so you totally cover the butter with the flour. As you do this, lay each piece into the flour so it gets fully coated. The purpose of this is that will keep the flour wrapped around the butter as we make the dough, and that way the butter will mix with the flour, yet the water will keep separated, and it will make a little bit of steam as the dough makes, and makes for a more tender dough. As you get it covered, just put it back into your flour bowl, and you'll do the rest of your butter just the same way. Simple little cuts, not too big pieces, not too small, but you do want to make sure that each of the pieces are thoroughly covered with the all-purpose flour. Cover it again, and again, cut it into a little smaller piece. And make sure each of those little pieces are again covered with the flour. Now this flour, you will take and add the butter back into your flour. And you need the full 20 ounces of all-purpose, so just take your bench knife and carefully pick up the remainder of your flour off your board. And you want to leave a little bit for rolling purposes when you roll the dough in a little while. With this, you take the bowl from your mixer, and it's best to use a stand mixer. At this point, the butter that you've covered with flour, you're going to put it into the mixing bowl of your stand mixer. Make sure you get all the flour and the butter into the bowl. And at that point, you can just toss it together with your hands gently to get it started. At this point, we will put this onto the mixer. Using a paddle and a standard stand mixer, just put your bowl onto the mixer. Add your paddle into it, and we're going to start the mixer on slow speed. And just let it barely get started. If you go too fast, you will be wearing all the flour. Once you get it going around a little bit, you'll take your pound of cream cheese and you're going to add it just a little handful at a time in with your flour and your butter mixture. Turn the mixer back on and let that incorporate. Continue adding the cream cheese, small golf ball sized pieces at a time, until you've added all the cream cheese. And you're looking to make sure that this barely comes together, but you do want it mixed. Once it comes in and forms a dough, just turn off your mixer. You don't want to overbeat it. When you overmix regular all-purpose flour, you're building gluten. And with that, it'll make the dough a lot tougher. So it just has barely come together as a dough, and you've saved a little flour. All you're going to do is take the dough off your paddle, and the rest of the dough out of your mixing bowl. And as you see, it hasn't quite come together, but you'll do the rest of this by pressing it together with your hands. Again, you do not want to overwork it while you're working on the mixer. At this point, using your hands, just work the dough together into a workable ball, and it'll come together. You'll still see in the dough chunks of butter, pieces of the cream cheese, and that's exactly what you want, to have a really moist and flaky dough when you're done. At this point, all we will do is go ahead and shape them into the size of pieces of dough that we'll make the crostadas out of. And these are shaped into about a 2.5 ounce ball. If you have a scale and are more comfortable with it, go ahead and scale, but just make a firm round ball like so. And as you work through the dough, you'll need to chill these. The dough actually requires being chilled a minimum of 4 hours before you can roll it out and continue with your crostada. But again, you're looking for a 2.5 to 3 ounce ball. And once these are done, we'll go ahead and stick those into the fridge to chill. And while we chill these, we will get started on making our filling for the crostada. In a small saucepan, add 6 ounces of water and bring it to heat. And as that's heating, you want to take a couple minutes and pick through 2 pints of berries. You want to make sure that you have really gorgeous fresh berries that are clean and ready to use. Our water is almost to a boil, and at that point we will go ahead and add approximately out of the pint, 1 cup of the berries to the water. And this is the part that we're actually going to make into our thickening for our crostadas, as well as it intensifies the flavor of the berries when you actually bring them to heat and puree. It releases a lot of the flavor. And just as they come up to heat, an immersion blender works great, or you can use a regular remove from heat and use a house blender if you don't have one. And all we're going to do is quickly puree these berries into the hot liquid. It's not imperative to have it absolutely smooth, but you do want it fairly smooth. And at this point, what we will do is we're going to add a mixture. This is simply a mixture of 1/2 cup of cornstarch and 1/2 cup of superfine sugar. And we're going to add approximately 1/4 cup of each. And just stir this into our liquid. And as this comes to a boil, just continue to stir it in. And then we'll go back to our immersion blender and just give it a final spin to make sure it's all smooth and incorporated. And with this, you've got a very thick blueberry compote that we'll make by pouring this over our raw berries. And at this point, just simply toss the puree and the raw berries together. Now that the dough is thoroughly chilled, all we need to do is roll it into a small circle. And with that, just bring it out, soften it with your hands, and bring it slightly flattened. Pick up the little bit of flour that's left on your board. It doesn't take much. And just roll back and forth, and it will stick absolutely to your rolling pin. You don't want excess flour, so just turn it the other way and go again. And you want to bring it out to about a 5-inch round circle. And as you roll these, you can just stack them up, and you would like to let them chill again for a minute before you fill them. Once they've chilled, all you do is take out one of the doughs, and you're going to take your berry filling that is chilled and simply fill these. And it takes about 1/3 cup of filling right into the center. And with that filling starting away from you, you're going to want to bring and turn it as you go, making little small flaps with your fingertips. And this makes the rustic crostata tart. And the crostata is just a rustic form of a tart. Wrap it around in your hands and set it on your pans. At this point, like I said, we do want to freeze these. And from there, what we'll do is bake them after they've been frozen for 24 hours. And you put them into a 375-degree oven, and you'll have them bake for 35 to 40 minutes till really golden brown and delicious. And we have a creme anglaise that's a lemon creme anglaise, which just makes for a gorgeous finish. You can also serve it with ice cream if you wish, but this makes for a gorgeous Silverton Hills blueberry crostata.
This is a variety of blueberry called Sunshine Blue. It's a heavy producer, whether it's in the garden or in containers. On a recent trip to Oregon, I was inspired to start growing more blueberries in containers and using them in a more decorative and ornamental way. I just want to tell you a little bit about the design of this deck because I think it's very good. First of all, it's very generous. There's plenty of room here for lots of activities. And it makes a lot of sense. It directs you literally from a walkway up and into the house. So there's no question about where you should go. Also, the steps are very generous as well. But I also like the combination of anchoring groupings of plants that you see here. On this end of the deck, you have a tall spiral evergreen, which serves as a tall vertical element. And what's nice is that these containers are staged and they stair-step down, and there's a nice contrast both of texture and color in the containers. For instance, look at these petunias and this lobelia as they spill down. And I think the most surprising plant here are the blueberries. There are 3 large containers of them, and they're just loaded with fruit. What I love about it is that, well, they're edible, but they blend beautifully with these colors of magenta and purple, and the containers do as well. So the whole ensemble has a very harmonic feel to it. So you wonder what makes all this come together and sing. Well, there's a generous number of containers, which creates mass, visual interest. The other thing is that, as we pointed out, it all steps down and has a tiered-like effect. Then there's contrast of bloom and foliage. And the other thing that I think is so important is that this has interest throughout the entire season. The petunias will bloom all through the summer. The evergreen will, of course, be evergreen. And these blueberries will change over time. You'll have berries throughout the summer, but then in the fall they turn the most marvelous color of orange and red and so forth, which fit into the autumn season. Blueberries can be the perfect addition to any home, whether you plant them in flower beds around the house or in containers. Just look at these, aren't they gorgeous? This place is totally outrageous. This is the Willamette Valley Fruit Company. And from this whole area in western Oregon, fruit is brought and they push about 15 million pounds of fruit out of here every year. I mean, everything you can think of. Blueberries, particularly blueberries, as well as strawberries and raspberries and marionberries and all sorts of things. So I'm gonna go try to find Jeff Dunn. He's the guy showing me around this place. Come on, let's see if we can find him.
Well, there you are.
Hey, Jeff, how are you doing?
Good, you?
I'm doing great. I snuck off and came in here where it all ends for these berries.
I see that.
Yeah, where they make the pies. Marlene's been showing me how to make these.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'm going to do a very good job or not, but
Are you sure? Are you sure she showed you?
Well, we'll see in just a minute. Well, now this pie making process is really interesting. The ladies were cranking these out, and I just was really taken by the ingredients and how few are actually in the pies.
Yeah. It's a simple recipe, as you were saying earlier. Sometimes the simpler is the better. Literally flour, fruit, and sugar is essentially all there is in there, with a few extra secret ingredients.
So, well, I was trying to pick up those secret ingredients.
Yeah.
So it's like a pound and a quarter of berries,
Yeah.
and then
Without giving you the recipe.
and then some lemon juice, and then a little bit of flour and
Yeah.
some sugar, and then some cinnamon.
Yep,
And
some guys
how am
have
I
some
doing
cinnamon.
here? So I've got it.
Looks good so far.
It's not as artistic as these others. I'm supposed to put a little sugar on top.
It
yes, right?
it passes. It passes.
Could you sell this one?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Ta-da! So, you know, over there in the plant where the berries are all coming in, I mean, it's quite crazy over there.
Yeah.
So is this like peak season?
This is a unique time of year because the month of July is essentially our busiest time, and so like you saw over there, there's three different. We got raspberries, marionberries, and blueberries all going at the same time, and that's not usually, you know, usually one fruit, sometimes two, but the month of July is crazy. You got
It's
three
very
fruits going.
crazy.
Yep, every line going through the building. I mean, there's 4 or 5 lines going.
It's also mechanized. I mean, I couldn't believe it every step.
The color sorter is the most amazing machine out there, which you saw, and which you talked about. It just blows all the greens and maroons off, just the blues go through. Everything's processed within a few hours of when it's picked. So a lot of people don't realize a lot of frozen fruit, or frozen produce for that matter, is healthier than a lot of fresh fruit you'll get at the grocery store.
And the blueberries that go in these pies, well, the same, because they're being frozen
Yep.
in time, and all those nutrients are locked in. Tastes oh so good and oh so homemade.
Oh yeah, it is. It literally is.
Well, thanks so much for allowing me to snoop around and see
Yeah.
all the fun activities that go on here.
Thanks for coming. Glad I found you over here.
Yeah, no, I'm going to stay here the rest of the day.
Good.
I'm going to see this one all the way through the oven, then I'm going to eat it.
See if we can make some prettier ones now.
That's right. Well, as you can see, I got my shipment in, and it's that wonderful little dwarf variety called Top Hat. And you can see the beautiful foliage is already beginning to turn. The great thing about blueberries is you can plant them in the fall, and you can also begin planting them in late winter and early spring. And they're going to be around for a long time. They're a great shrub that's just going to persist in your garden and year after year produce more and more bounty. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. Until next time, good eating and good health.